All right, so what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, man. It's your boy, and it's been a while since I made a patch note video, but this anniversary has me really excited, so I decided to make some time for this one. As you can see, we got the new uniforms coming in for Winter Soldier, Taskmaster, and Ghost, along with tier 4 for Taskmaster and tier 3 for Ghost. So we're going to take a look at these uniforms and see just how much they've decided to change these characters. First and foremost, Bucky is going back to his roots. He's going back to being a speed superhero, and I actually don't mind this change because this makes it so that if you're one of the people who bought his last uniform, you now have two versions of him that's actually viable. You have a combat supervillain that can actually be used for PvE or for a little bit of PvP in AC because it has iframe ignore on it. Or you can pick up the new one now, and now you have a speed superhero, even though speed male superheroes don't really have much value for ABX/ABL. You still have someone that you can use for World Boss for different requirements, and it still has iframe ignore. They moved it around a little bit. Now this uniform for Bucky, they decided to add an additional line for the uniform bonus. As you can see right here, it has 30% critical damage, so it's actually easier now to cap out his stats than previously. That's pretty much all they did for the uniform bonus. The tier 2 passive is the same. The 4-star passive is the same as the most recent uniform. The first skill doesn't look like anything crazy. It has sneer on it. The second skill, nothing crazy. Third skill has a burn, has all defense, actually decreases all defense by 10% for enemies, decreases their recovery rate, so that's a little bit of PvP. Has sneer and paralysis, that's not bad. Has accumulation, and previously the third skill had the iframe ignore on it with the accumulation. Now it's on the fourth skill. To be honest, I prefers when the accumulation and the iframe ignore is on the same skill, just because that makes it so that when you use your iframe ignore skill, you get the most damage that you can possibly get, and that's perfect for killing enemies. So I don't necessarily agree with moving the iframe ignore to the fourth skill, but it is what it is. Okay. Fourth skill for the last uniform had the heal on it. This one actually still has the heal, and it has invincibility. Last time it actually did not have invincibility, so that's actually pretty good. I don't know why I said it like that. Let me see if they're moving around the invincibility, because the 5 seconds of invincibility was actually on the 5th skill before, so they just moved it around a little bit. It's not really a major change for Bucky. What's gonna be really telling is how hard the skills hit, because I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison, and whether or not this uniform is easier to play with something like a CTP of energy or a CTP of destruction versus the previous uniform of him. It was more ideal, in my opinion, to use him with a CTP of rage. So yeah, that's about it for Winter Soldier. I wouldn't say this one is a must buy, but it's gonna be the most updated version of him as a speed superhero. And for $875, if you really like Bucky, I think what they did here is honestly the best thing they could have done for a character that's getting two uniforms so close to each other. Make them very, very different, even though it's for the same character. I really like this, and for the future I think that's something they should try to do more often, because now both versions of Bucky hold a little bit of value if you don't want to buy and use people like Kingpin for ABX/ABL. Now this, in my opinion, is from the list, I would say the must-buy uniform. Okay, we got Taskmaster becoming for the first time ever a superhero. He's a combat superhero, and there's only, I believe, that's like viable for content, like 2 or 3 support characters that are combat superheroes. We have M'Baku, who's kind of a paywall, but you can get him, I think, at 1-star for free from the Wakanda legendary battle. Then you have to upgrade him to tier 2. Taskmaster is free, and then you get his uniform for $875. So yeah, Taskmaster is actually, let me turn the music down a little bit here because it's kind of overbearing, but yeah, Taskmaster becoming a combat superhero is a very good thing. You got Umbaku, Colossus. Thing is a little bit of a support for the Fantastic Four. And then besides that, you got Jessica Jones, who is a combat superhero that can buff the defenders. But in terms of a support that can apply to all allies, this is a major W for Taskmaster. And on top of that, they're increasing the extra damage to superheroes slash supervillains by 5%. So not necessarily a big buff, but the utility that it offers, I think both versions of Taskmaster are holding some value here. Again, this is honestly one of the best things they could have done. Okay, now overall, I don't think Taskmaster is going to be a damage dealer, but the fact that he now also offers additional buffs to the Thunderbolts is absolutely amazing. So decreases chain hit damage by 30% when attacked, increases guaranteed critical rate by 20% is really good, and then ignore dodge by 20%. Keep in mind that previously his tier 2 passive would apply to weapon masters, okay, but they changed it. Before it would give 20% critical rate, so the same thing, guaranteed critical rate, and 20% ignore dodge with skill damage and bonus damage. So now what you have here is a little bit of PvP mixed in with some PvE, which is actually not bad because his support passive is one of those ones that can be used for PvE and PvP. The villain portion for World Boss, that's GBR, and the superhero portion for stuff like AC or maybe Timeline Battle if you want to do more damage. Now, honestly, since Sentry doesn't have the Thunderbolt tag, kind of a waste. Okay, unless I'm gonna read further in the patch notes that they gave Sentry the Thunderbolts tag. But moving on. Besides that, Taskmaster, Paralysis, Burn, Incapacitation, Stun, a heal there is good. Shock, not bad. He had shock before. He has accumulation in his kit now. I don't think he had accumulation previously, but I find it highly unlikely outside of like just some meme tier testing videos that majority of people are gonna change Taskmaster to being a damage dealer with like a CTP of energy, rage, or anything. The most I can see is people like me who currently have Taskmaster with a CTP of insight, switching him over to a CTP of liberation, since he offers now a little bit more for PvP. Like this was always good for PvE and PvP. Now there's a little bit more in here for PvP, so you could, you know, lead him over to something that's more viable for PvP with the CTP of liberation. But I don't necessarily feel as though you need to change anything. Let's see though. All right, so now we have Ghost, and Ghost is offering debuff removal for all of the Thunderbolts. This is amazing. However, the Thunderbolts currently aren't good enough for PvP. You know what I'm saying? Without Sentry, I don't think they're viable, but this is decent for AC stuff. So Team 2, you now have a place for your Ghost. In addition to that, she's offering, oh, by the way, she's a speed superhero. So this update is honestly doing a lot of first, and I like that, right? Because before she was a speed villain, so that's very good. In addition to that, let's see what else we have here in the kit that can offer any real value. Honestly, I think outside of being a debuff removal for the Thunderbolts, Ghost might just be a skip for most people. Yeah, nothing that really screams must have to me. So only must buy uniform. If you're low on crystals, I would say Taskmaster, and then Bucky if you really like him and you want to make him more versatile. Okay, because he's him and Taskmaster become, I would say, one of the most versatile characters in the game at this point. Yeah, anyway, so let's take a look at this guy's tier 4 increases chain hit damage by 35% when attacking. I really at some point would like to see them make it so that support tier 4s can actually charge and activate, kind of like the CTP of insight, because if this applied to all allies, that would be amazing. I think that's the next step. I think they should make it so that these support tier 4s don't need to be on the field for their effect to apply to their allies. You know, maybe every 3 or 4 rotation, your support tier 4 gets charged up. Like let's say every time your damage dealer does a tier 4 rotation, 25% gets built up for your support tier 4. You do it 4 times, and you know the fourth time, then disactivate, and then you just pop off, right? That would give me the incentive to tier 4 some of these support tier 4s, because we're never going to see Taskmaster on the field. It's the same reason why I didn't tier 4 Nick Fury, but because his uniform is so useful, so versatile, I might tier 4 Taskmaster, depending on what the higher stages require for World Boss Legend Plus. Ghost, decent tier 4, I guess, but sorry, tier 3, but it is what it is. Moving on to the artifacts. Apply to self immediately, not necessary. Immediately, great artifact for Ghost, but wrong character. Okay, this should have applied to all allies. Drop this by 10% or 15, drop it down to 15, like that, and just give all allies this buff. Becomes a little bit better, or even leave it at 20 and make it so it only applies to the Thunderbolts. Very, very good. But Ghost is not necessarily gonna get played as a DPS, so giving her one of the best artifacts in the game. This is the same artifact that people like Scarlet Witch and if I'm not mistaken, Sentry have, like extra damage to heroes and villains. It's decent for Ghost, but it could be better if it was a support artifact. Anyways, moving on. Apply to self when attacking, increases basic damage regardless of. Alright, so yeah, that's a skip for me. Neither one of these artifacts should you pick up at 6 stars. The characters don't need it. Alright, so we got the uniform collection out, so that means there's no additional uniforms coming. No additional uniform for Sentry. In addition to that, they got some game fixes here for timeline quests. We got Team Battle Arena being displayed incorrectly and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the patch notes. I think overall it's good. The artifacts could have been better. The tier 4 support for Taskmaster, I'm still waiting for them to change how these support tier 4s function, and I would say Taskmaster is definitely the must buy from this. Even if you're afraid to play and you already had the old one, this one is definitely a good pickup. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.